Welcome to episode 18 of our ComfyUI tutorial series. Today I will show you how I convert photos of people or animals into cute cartoon characters. I will present different options for both SDXL and Flux, even a combination of both. So you can choose the option that works best for you. To ensure you have the latest version, go to the manager and click Update All, then Restart. I am using the new interface. If you go to Settings, you can change it to look the same as mine. If you search for the menu, you can find the option under Use New Menu to place it on top. Then if you search for Workflow, you will see the option for Workflow Position. I prefer to have it on top, just like I do in Photoshop. For the badge options, I set all to none, except for the source, which I set to Hide Built-in. This will show me which custom node a node is part of. Now we can open workflows just like in any software from the workflow menu and click Open. I have saved a few workflows here that worked well for me. Let's start with this SDXL workflow first. Because I chose to have the workflow on top, I can now have multiple workflows open in this tab and easily switch between them. If you close a workflow, it will ask if you want to save the changes. Let me show you what this workflow does. I uploaded this portrait of a woman here. Then I added a short prompt that describes the photo. Next, I can run the workflow and the result is this cartoon version of the woman. You can compare it before and after. As you can see, it's not perfectly identical to the photo since AI tends to create random images rather than exact replicas, but it's quite close. Let me show you another example. This time I am uploading this portrait photo of a wizard. Then I describe the photo very briefly. Keep it short because I added extra elements that help make it as cartoonish, and SDXL doesn't like prompts that are too long. If I run the workflow, I get this cartoon wizard image. You can see that it does a nice job creating cartoon versions from photos. And you can run the workflow several times until you find a version you like. Of course, depending on the photo, prompt, and your preferences, you will need to adjust the denoise value. If it's smaller, the result will be more similar to the photo and less cartoonish. If the denoise value is higher, it will look even more cartoonish. So always experiment with the denoise until you find the perfect balance. I have included some recommended values for denoise. As you can see, if the denoise value is too small, it doesn't have enough power to change the image. But as soon as I start increasing the denoise, the cartoon version becomes more obvious. Now, let me explain this workflow and what you need to make it work. I have included a note here with a link to a model that you need to download. This model is from Civet AI called Wildcard XL Animation. It's an SDXL model trained on cartoon images. Download it, then go to the ComfyUI folder, look for the models folder, then for the checkpoints folder, and place your model there. As you can see, I already downloaded the model. Once you have the model downloaded, it should appear in this list and you can select it. After the model is loaded, we have the prompt. It looks complex, but it's quite simple. I have a short prompt here that describes the image, and under it is a longer prompt that describes the cartoon style. I made it this way so it's easier to just input your short description without having to worry too much about the cartoon style prompt. Then I used a text concatenate node to combine those two prompts. If I add a show any node, you can see how the prompts are combined. First the wizard, then the cartoon style description. So it's first text and then second text. I am removing the node since I know how the prompts combine. You can collapse the text concatenate node if it takes up too much space. Then the combined text goes to the clip text encode where you usually put prompts. I converted the widget to text so I can add the text. For the negative prompt, I added some words to prevent it from looking too ugly or too realistic like a photo. Then we load an image. In a normal image-to-image process, we just have a load image and VAE encode that goes to K sampler. However, SDXL prefers to work with images around 1024 pixels in size. To prevent getting images that are too big or too small, I use this resize node and calculator to ensure it gets a size that produces the best results. This image resize node normally looks like this. I put it in resize mode, and you usually need to input sizes manually for width and height. So what I did was convert the width and height to inputs. As you can see, it now looks the same as the one for the workflow. I connected the width and height from the resolution calculator to the image resize node. I added a show any node to preview the actual size. You choose your ratio to match the uploaded image. For some ratios, you might want to adjust the megapixel if it's too big. Usually, 1 works fine. If I choose a wide ratio, you can see the actual size here. As you can see, the image will look distorted if the ratio doesn't match, so I will leave it at a ratio of 1. Now that the image is loaded, it uses the calculator to get the right size, and the image is resized. Then the image is encoded and goes to KSampler, where all the magic happens. To have even more control, I also added Control Net. Check episode 9 to learn more about that. The image goes to a preprocessor, so we get it in a format that Stable Diffusion understands. You can try different preprocessors like Canny, which captures the contours and edges from an image, or you can use a depth map to get a depth map from the image. It all depends on the image you are using and how well the preprocessors can capture details from it. I like to use the Anyline Art preprocessor. Keep in mind that the first time you use it, it will download the model automatically from the internet, so it can take some time. Check the command window. If you don't have long path activated in Windows, it might not be able to download for you, and you'll get an unfinished message because it didn't download the models. You can post a screenshot of the error on Discord, and I can tell you how to download it manually. If that happens, next we use a control net model. Again, check episode 9 if you don't have it already. It must be the SDXL compatible model. Then we have the settings for applying control net. Here I changed the value to N%. So the strength of control net ends sooner, allowing some space to add that cartoon style on top of the original photo. The settings for KSampler should be the ones recommended for your model. And for denoise, as you saw, play around with values until you get the right balance, and that is the entire workflow. If you have questions, the ComfyUI channel on Discord is the best place to ask. Let me reopen the workflow so it's nice and organized. Let's do some more tests on animals. I hope the people doing animal tests don't complain. So I uploaded this cat and used just a simple prompt that says, a cat. When I run the workflow, I get this cute cartoon cat. As you can see before and after, you can run it a few times until you're happy with the results. Let's try a different subject like this night photo. For the prompt, something simple like a night should work, and this is the result. I got a nice and clean cartoon version of this night. So far, I've used this model, but I also tried another cartoon model, and you can experiment with your favorite models, maybe you like anime or other styles. This workflow is using another model called Real Cartoon, and you have the link here. The models generate images like this, so let's give it a test with a photo of a dog in the forest. I added a short prompt mentioning the most obvious subjects in the scene, and the result is this cartoon dog. Let's try something different like this robot. You can see the robot looks more realistic, and I want a cartoon version of it. The line is nice and clean, but the final result isn't very different. As I mentioned, it depends on the image and the prompt, and in this case, it's probably because the contour line was so clear that the control net is too strong. You could reduce the control net strength, but I prefer to play with the denoise value. So let's increase that. As you can see, this version is more cartoonish. You can try different seeds until you find something you like. I can also make it look more different by changing the prompt. For example, I can add some orange eyes to make it cuter, and the result is this. Now, let me show you what you can do if the image is not a person or an animal. In this case, it's a red flower, so I don't want it to look like a cartoon character. I want it to look like a cartoon flower. When I test it, you will see that on some seeds, it tries to add eyes to make it look like a character. In that case, let's revisit the second prompt where I put the style. Where it says a cute character with big eyes, I will remove that part and put an object or item if you want to be more general, or you can put a flower if you only want to generate flowers. Then I will remove all other words related to a character. Let's test it again. For objects and other things, it doesn't need to be identical. It just needs to be similar so you have more freedom. I use higher values for denoise and it will still look good. The higher you go, the more obvious the cartoon effect will be. So that was for SDXL. It works even on lower end video cards. Now let's try a Flux-based workflow. This one is a simple one. I just used Lora for Flux like in the last episode. What's different is that I used the Turbo Alpha Lora to speed up the generation and use only 8 steps. For Lora, I used a cute 3D cartoon Lora, and you have the link here. This is what it creates. I split the prompt into 2 parts so you can have the trigger words in one place and the prompt in another. We use a photo that is then scaled down to fit 1024 pixels, but Flux can go bigger or smaller in size. To get better results, use multiples of 64. Like you can literally add 64 to that number and it does the math for you, or you can decrease the values the same way. Then you play around with the noise again. Let's test it. The result looks like this. It's quite similar to the original, but I want it to be more cartoonish, so I will increase the denoise value. Let's increase it even more, and now it's really cartoonish. It lost some pose because we don't have control net. I tried with control net, but it's too strong for Flux and barely leaves any room for nice animation, and it slows down the generation anyway. You can try different Loras. For example, I have one here called Line Warm Illustration. You can search for it on Civet AI, and it creates these types of illustrations. It has this recommended weight for Lora, so I will change it in the workflow. Then if I go to Show Info, I can click a button to get the info from Civet AI, and this is the trigger word for it. I select it and click on Copy, then I paste it here and maybe add some extra cartoon words. When I test it, it looks like this. This one has a different effect compared to the previous Lora, so I need to find the right balance. I will increase the denoise value, and now it's more different. Even if it's not in the exact same pose, it still looks like a cartoon version of that person. Always try different seeds. Some results might surprise you. For the last workflow, I tried a combination of SDXL and Flux. The first part is the SDXL on top, and below it is the Flux workflow. Here's how I use this. First, I set the seed to be fixed. You will see in a moment why. Then I use this Flux workflow, which is just an image-to-image Flux workflow to increase the details in the SDXL generation. I will disable this entire Flux group by using the eye icon. Now, when I run it, it will only use the SDXL workflow on top. Just like you saw earlier, it takes the photo and makes it cartoonish with the SDXL model. The result is this cartoon woman, which already has some nice details. In this case, let's see if we can use Flux to add extra details, or at least a different variation. Since the seed is fixed, I can enable Flux and test it. As you can see, it does not generate the SDXL again because it has already generated up to that point and nothing has changed. It just continues from where it left off. So this was the SDXL result, and now let's check the Flux result. As you can see, it can add those tiny details like finer details in the hair and so on. Now, let's turn off Flux again and try a different subject like this night. This is the result with SDXL. I can go back and add a smile and maybe red eyes. The result is this. It now has that smile and red eyes. If I try to get a different version, nothing changes because the seed is fixed. So what do you do in that case? Well, you go to the seed and change it manually. Now I have a new generation. Let's say I'm happy with the result. I can go to Flux and enable it. And now with that version of the night, it will run through the Flux workflow, resulting in this. You can increase the number of steps to 30 if it's too blurry. See how the neck area in the SDXL version doesn't have fine details? Now look at the Flux version, see how everything is more detailed. I don't like that the eyes aren't red enough in the Flux version. For that, I have this extra prompt field to avoid typing the same prompt again. I just connected it to the SDXL workflow and used text concatenate. So what I type here will be combined with the original prompt. The result is this version with red eyes. It's quite cool. For those who want to support my channel, don't forget you can join the membership, connect your YouTube account with Discord for priority replies to your comments, access to private groups, and more. I also have these other 2 channels. Check them out and subscribe to those as well. They're still new, so they need your help to grow. For Discord, this invite link should always work. On Discord, anyone has free access to all the workflows in the Pixaroma Workflows channel. You can see that each episode has quite a few workflows, and sometimes I add more in a few days with updates for that episode. You can search for the episode in the top right. The first 9 episodes have a 0 in front, and you can jump to that episode. That's all for today. Thank you to the legends and all the members who subscribed and gave us super thanks. As you know, any like and comment helps. So if you found this video helpful, please press that like button. Have a great day and see you on Discord.